Good evening, and welcome to the program Talk with Tashi, a program dedicated to young people, adolescents, and adults. Discuss your issues and solutions with Tashi. And now, here is your host, Tashi.
Hi, good night. It is always a pleasure to see you. Good night, good evening, good morning, wherever in the world you are and whatever time you are tuning in. Thank you so much for coming back to the Unusual Grace channel. Tonight, we are looking at another interesting topic, I would say, and a very important one. We're looking at the question, is our church serving our youth? Now, in order to get our young people to answer this question as we explore the topic, I sent to a few contacts to share with their young people two questions that I would like them to answer, one or both of them, as we look at this topic. Because the fact of the matter is, we are living in a time now where we see more and more young people. They are falling away from the faith. They are no longer interested in church. Our youth, particularly between the ages of 16 and 24, 25, thereabout, in Jamaica, I can speak of. Our young people are responsible. That age group is responsible for a large percentage of the crime and violence in our country, in our nation. And therefore, it is important to kind of understand what is going on in the minds of our youth as it relates to church. Now, spoiler alert, the contacts I sent out would have been people who are involved in their own churches. And so the responses that would have come in are likely from young people who are in the church. I suppose that at a later time, it would be good to get the voice of some young people who are not in church at all and hear what they have to say. But for now, we want to hear from the youth who are actually in church, answering the question, how can the church serve our youth? So the two questions that were asked was, one, what can the church do to better serve our youth? And two, what is the biggest problem you have with the church? What is the biggest problem you have with the church? I got a few responses and I want to share them with you tonight, and then we'll have a conversation. This is a talk you do not want to miss. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So as you know, on Talk with Tashi, we do issues and solutions. So as we go along and listen, I want to hear see if I can discern what the issue is as these young people respond to the questions, and then to offer some kind of solution. And maybe for you, you could share some of your issues or issues that you believe young people are facing right down there in the comments. And you can also share solutions to those that you hear in this broadcast. Let's go. We are first going to hear from Brittany.
Good day. My name is Brittany, and I'm answering the first question. I believe the church can serve the youth more by extending grace and understanding. The youth of this generation and generation before have been granted a unique disposition that I believe can artistically aid in the process of evangelism and getting persons into the church and into the kingdom of God. Sometimes these methods or these concepts are kind of scrutinized because they're not necessarily traditional, which would oftentimes discourage the youth from even wanting to try in um in the church setting and so. But that's in a nutshell. That's what I think.
All right. So Brittany is asking for more understanding. And what I hear her saying is that young people have a lot of great ideas. They have these ideas for evangelism, winning souls, getting more people to come into the church, and so on. But sometimes, because these ideas do not fit into the traditional mode of doing things, then you find that they are spiritualized or rejected because, it just doesn't fit into what the senior people of the church are expecting or looking for. And this in turn has a ripple effect because it discourages the young people who are there from even making any suggestions, because it's almost as though when they come up with these ideas that don't fit into, then they are rejected where that is concerned. So they just don't bother. And when young people are discouraged from even making suggestions for things to be done, suggestions that are actually taken into consideration, this can lead to discouragement, and it can cause them to feel like they don't want to be a part of that particular church anymore because my voice is not being heard. That is the issue that I'm hearing from Brittany. And it is a real issue. It is a real issue. And the solution, my suggestion to leaders in this instance, one, it is always a good thing to hear what the young people have to say. So hear it out, flesh it out, work it through. Now, if a creative idea comes about that it's different, and there are some concerns about it, my suggestion is to lay it out on the table, say what the concerns are, because the truth is, sometimes those who have been in ministry for a very long time, they have seen a lot, they have experienced a lot, and sometimes they have a vantage point where they see things that young people might not necessarily be able to see from where they are. So it is okay, I believe, to have a conversation, hear them out first, have that conversation, and say, these are the potential things. What are the effects? What's the possible outcome if we approach evangelism this way, as you are suggesting? These are my concerns. 1, 2, 3. This could go that way. This could go that way. So there's a conversation. So at least their voice, they feel like they're being heard, and maybe they will see it your way. But if there is no biblical basis on which to reject the suggestion, the creativity, and so on, if there's no biblical basis. So for example, if they're going to tell you that they want to have a big dance, something that looks like the secular world kind of dance kind of thing, I can see with that, you say, no, we are probably going to be looking too much like the world. We cannot become the world to win the world, because we are going to have to try to sustain it, and that won't work at all, right? So if it is something that has that can be taken without violating any biblical principles, so to speak, be open to it and try it. Let's give it a run. Let's give it a run for 6 months. Let's give it a run for 1 year. Let us just give it a run. Or maybe the leaders could suggest to those young people that, look, idea, hear your idea, utilize it in the youth department. Let's see how well it works there. And then, we can work together to fine tune it and so on. Again, if there is no biblical basis on which to reject it, be open to it. So that would be my suggestion for that, Brittany and her church people. Let's hear from Jamila.
Good night, this is Jamil. With regards to the question stating what can the church do to better serve young people, I believe that more churches should start to prioritize the youths of our island, whether this is by having fundraising activities or activities which get more youths involved and aware of the church, having them feel like they have a voice in the church. This will make it so that youths actually feel the need to go to church by their own will, instead of feeling that it is an obligation or a routine, or going because they feel like they have to. Churches should aim that youths genuinely want to go to church. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamil. So what I'm hearing Jamil talk about is involving the young people if they are involved in something that is worthwhile to them, they're gonna want to come to church rather than feeling like they are being forced to come to church. Now, the truth is, Jamil, that I think young people, children, young people in general, will go through a point in life. In general, this is not true for everybody, but I think it's true for many persons. In general, there will be a point in our lives when we feel like we're being forced to go to church, wanting to go to church. I heard him say in the last part that the church should kind of focus on getting the young people there where they actually want to go to church, and they look forward to it. And I think that that has to do with how they grow in their faith, how they're being discipled, and their relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. But the truth is, children, young people, they're not always there yet, because you have to grow and mature in the faith and so on. So it is the activities and the ministries and the events and so on and the relationships that will get them excited. So my suggestion here would be, and he made it a very good suggestion. Jamil said, so even though he mentioned fundraising, I think that was just an example he was using, but he's pretty much saying, if young people are not involved in the activities of the church and things that are going on, or if opportunities are not being created for young people to get involved in church, then this is doing a disservice to them. So how can the church better serve our young people? Create multiple opportunities for them to be involved. Let them get involved in things that they like to do, and I mean in terms of their gifts, things that are in keeping with their gifts and talents. So when I say like to do, I don't mean anything including sin. No. But things that include, that is in alignment with their gifts and talents. That is very, very important. So I think that's a good one, Jamil. Thank you so much. And that would be my suggestion to churches and to leaders of churches, that you should be intentional in creating or encouraging your youth minister, your youth department, to have these different avenues that young people can actually become involved in. And when they're involved, have something that they're working towards. So if you have a drama ministry, for example, and you have some really great talent in the drama ministry, there should be some major event that they can work towards at least once a year, where that, yes, the drama ministry is here, and we're working and doing stuff like that. So you put on a production or something like that. That will keep people coming and going, because you're doing all of this training and meeting and so on, and it is going somewhere. It is good to kind of get involved. What I find with some of these ministries for young people, depending on the nature of the ministry, if they don't get regular opportunities to minister in that particular performing art or skill or talent or whatever, then they're just there latent, and that doesn't keep them going. So that would be my suggestion. Create the opportunities, have some major event that they're planning towards on a set time. So whether it be every summer, there is a summer production, or every Christmas time, there is a dance production, or, every so-and-so, there is a choir worship night or something. There should be something that they know that they're working towards. All right. And by the way, the people that we're hearing from first are those who answered just question 1. And if you're just joining, well, you wouldn't be just joining, would you? Because this is not live. But the first question is what we're listening to our young people. And that question is, how can the church better serve our youth? Now we are going to hear from Leanne.
Hi, my name is Lynn, and I think one of the things that the church can do to better serve young people is involve them in ministry, because it just helps in so many different ways. It helps us to serve God better, and it helps us to even discover new talents that we have, and to actually grow and nurture those talents.
Thank you, Leanne. Leanne is spot on, and we've mentioned some of those before. So she's talking about how the church can better serve and the young people. There are churches, as a matter of fact, that do not involve young people in many things. They will say that, they're too young to do this, too young to do that, and all of that. And even within the context of the youth department, we can have our young people preaching and teaching, making presentations and doing activities and leading worship, singing, and whatever it is, whatever that happens in your regular church can happen in the youth department as well. But she is right. It is within the context of getting them involved in ministry that we get the opportunity to hone the gifts and talents and skills that our young people have, and they discover things that they love. They develop abilities to do certain things that they would not have been able to do otherwise. There are so many people who are doing well now, whether in ministry or in their secular jobs, and it's because of their involvement in church. Church caused a lot of people to be able to stand in front of a crowd and make a presentation, and I've heard so many people say that within our context, where I remember a gentleman, big man, got one of those managerial jobs recently or at some point, and he was being interviewed actually, and in the interview they gave each interviewee an hour to go and put a presentation together to come and present. And he was making the announcement to a group of people in a meeting that we were having, that everybody was nervous and all of that, and he would have been just like that had it not been for the many times he was asked within church to come and do an exhortation, do this, do that, and you would have seen so many presentations and all of that. So because of that training, those opportunities in church, he was able to do well in this pressure situation in a job interview, and he actually got the job. Praise God. So yeah, we see that there's so far some commonality with what they are saying. Get them involved, be more understanding, be more open. And that would be my suggestion. We've said a bit about that already. So let's move on now to Amanda. Amanda answered both questions. So she's going to give an answer for how can we better serve? How can the church better serve the youth? And she's going to also answer the question, what is your biggest problem with the church? Let's hear Amanda.
Hi, this is Amanda. In relation to the first question, I think that leaders of the church can try to be a little bit more understanding and try to relate more to the young people, try to see things through the eyes of a young person, that way we can come to some form of middle ground when it comes to, disagreements or just things that you want to bring across. My biggest problem with church is...
Before she goes to the biggest problem, let's talk about that. Do you notice that there seems to be this general sense that the young people are feeling misunderstood in church? And it is a reality. It is a reality. And she spoke about having disagreements. And I think it is a fact that sometimes young people and older people will just not see things eye to eye because of different levels of maturity, different experiences, different era, maybe, but I also want to speak to the young people on this one, because sometimes what they have to say, they are heard and there is a conversation that is facilitated. But I think sometimes, and it can go on either end, young people can do this, leaders can do this, or, older people in the church, where you come to a conversation with a particular mindset on something, and there is no room for being open, no room for change, no anything. So in other words, I come to this conversation believing that it should be A, and it doesn't matter what you say. It should be A, And I would like you to agree with me that it should be A. Sometimes both parties think that way. But for me, personally, and what I'm encouraging, because sometimes there is a lack of understanding of where an individual is coming from and what they are seeing and so on. And so it probably would be better in moments of disagreement to kind of understand what the disagreement is and why this position is the one I hold to, why I am recommending this and so on. But at the end of the day, though, where disagreements are concerned, is for young people, submission to authority is something that the Bible encourages. And submission to authority to the extent that this submission does not cause you to sin against God in any way or compromise, your Christian principles and scripture in any way. The extent is that. All right. So that is important for us to understand as well. But again, this is a cry of our youth. They do not feel like they are being understood. And I think that greater effort needs to be taken in helping them to feel understood. So, and bear in mind too, young people, that being understood does not necessarily equal agreement. Okay? Being understood does not necessarily equal agreement. So, for this issue, the solution, more open conversation, and being clear about what is the backstory. Why am I, the leader, holding to this position on this matter? What is the wisdom in that? What is the wisdom in that? And for the young person, be clear as well about, why you are where you are. And just ask your questions. That's probably what I would encourage the young person to do. Ask questions and be clear and open about how you feel, what you are feeling, what you are thinking, and then just, keep that conversation going. And then all the best. Let's hear Amanda. She's continuing. She's going to answer the second question, her biggest problem with the church.
My biggest problem with church is sometimes it feels as if our free will has been taken away. That we can't really choose if we want to do something or stop doing something as it relates to, for example, ministry. The moment you say you're tired or the moment you feel like, you just need a little break, it is brought across as if something is wrong in your Christian walk just because you're tired, something not right. So yeah, that is my biggest problem.
Again, and this is the notion that because sometimes people are in ministries that are a little bit more demanding than others in terms of time and effort and energy and all of that. And this is the notion that once you want to take a break from ministry, then could this mean that you are drifting away from the faith? And could this be that something else is going on and so on? And I think that there can be a solution to this. But, from experience, one of the things that, because one of the young persons said it earlier, was it Lynn? Lynn says, involving them in ministry helps you to serve God better, and you can grow, in your faith, and, your gifts and your talents can be honed and all of that. Good job, Lynn. Now, one of the things, sometimes young people are involved in more than one ministries. So they might be involved in, say, 2 or 3 or 4 different ministries, right? And let's say maybe exam time, they have some exams because they might be going to college or so. And maybe they don't have any exams. They could be working, but they feel like, they just need a break to rejuvenate and that kind of thing. Sometimes the young people will come and they might say they want to just take a break from everything. And a lot of times leaders would want to ask why, because why everything? Why not just one or two things and keep it light and so on? And sometimes in the leader's experience, it might be that once they ask for break from everything, you don't see them at church as often, and they're trying to mitigate against that or to avoid that happening. So in one sense, trying to build some understanding, the leader might be, refusing this outright break because of, their concern for if they might be losing the young person. And the young person might be thinking, everything is all right spiritually. I just want a break physically. I just want to rest. I want to, I will be here at church and so on. Well, let's talk about a possible solution for this. Right? Possible solution for this. Leaders should be able to use other ways. Leaders can have other ways to discern or to evaluate whether there is need for concern spiritually. That's one. But what can happen is for young people who are heavily involved in ministry is that there could be some agreement that every year each leader or person in the ministry is given an opportunity to take a break for a specified period of time. That is an official, we know about it kind of break. It's almost like you're working in a department, working as in not church, no, work. You're working in a department and you are allotted some time for leave. And at the beginning of the year, your supervisor might come to you and say, okay, everybody needs to take leave this year. When are you going to take it? Because we all can't take it at the same time. You're only allotted 9 days leave in any given year. When are you going to take your 9 days? Something like that, right? So if Mary Brown says she's going to take her leave at the end of February, so that will take her the first 2 weeks of March. So that's Mary Brown's time. And then Mary Brown knows that that's her leave time and she has to plan her business around that time. And when she comes back, full speed ahead with the work that is at hand. So maybe a solution, and I would say this to all leaders who might be, wondering in addressing this issue, that there is a specified period of time that is agreed upon that says every year you are allowed to take this much break. So that can be arranged if, for example, you have young people who are involved in ministry, but you know that they're studying, so they can take a break during their exam time, for argument's sake. Or they can take a break during the summertime or during the, and then churches will have certain times when they say no break. We need all hands on deck, like Easter time and so on. And if you're planning crusades and that kind of thing. So that would be my suggestion there, that there is a scheduled time for break once a year or whatever time is agreed upon. So when persons are, going, then and it is within a certain time and you go and you come back at that time. That's the agreed time. So if you want to fly out and go to foreign that time, come back when it's done or whatever the case might be, that would be good. Because there have been people who take breaks, and sometimes too, I've seen situations where a break is needed and you say, okay, how long do you need? And you will hear answers like, I don't know. And if you are serious as a believer and about ministry and what you're doing in the kingdom for God, your break cannot be indefinite. And young people need to hear that. That's not in your regular job. You don't go to your boss and say that you need a break and the break is indefinite. You go when you feel like and come back when you feel like. In the house of God, in the house of God, it must be as organized or even more organized than what's going on in the world. So any believer, any serious believer, any Christian who is serious about God, serious about ministry, serious about what they're doing in ministry and doing in the kingdom of God and so on, will seek to be a little bit more sensitive, understanding that you are in ministry and you work with other people. So that would be my solution there. And all the best to you, Amanda. Believe it or not, we are already out of time. Wow, this has been a very interesting conversation, and I do have a couple of other responses that I'd love to share with you. So guess what? This particular conversation continues next week. If you are interested in what the other young people said and my responses, and you want to be a part of the conversation, please do tune in next week, God willing, to hear the conclusion of, is the church serving our young people? It has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. Join me again for another talk with Tashi.
Thanks for tuning in. Do join us next week, same time and on this platform, when you can talk with Tashi. Until next time, do have a safe, blessed and productive week.